I now invite our fifth presenter, Sushrut Jangid, student of the SPA School of Planning and Architecture, Bhopal, Department of Design. He's going to speak on Synesthetes type and audio reactive typeface. Please go ahead, Sushrut.
Hi everyone, and I would like to say uh, like greetings everyone, and I would like to say thank you Typography for giving me this platform to speak about my project. So without further ado, I'll start my presentation. So hi everyone, my name is Sushrut, and I, as a project, explored Synesthete type, which is basically an audio-visual typeface. How audio can be introduced into the typeface to make it more enjoyable and to make it more experimental. So this was my third year's project. So I stumbled upon the interesting phenomena of synesthesia, and it's like in the world there are like 2 to 4% people out there who have synesthesia. But if you were to ask me what is synesthesia, it's basically a amazing neurological phenomena where a person would have intertwined senses. I mean, if a normal person can see what he sees and he won't confuse his senses, but a synesthete can also taste a word or maybe hear, I mean, see a sound. So that was going on in their head, and that was the amazing phenomena that got me thinking how I can particularly use that particular kind of concept and introduce into typography as well. Because what if a sound can trigger a typography, and there could be many applications to it as well. For an example, the Remy from Ratatouille might have had like synesthesia because he was experiencing what he was tasting. He was having visual information of what he was tasting. So the idea was to explore it in terms of the aural visual interface, where there can be like a sound which can trigger a typography as well, but can also have like a sort of emotion layer associated with it as well, which I'm going to discuss about. So that became my project. So I wanted to study about different aspects of sound, typography, and emotions as well. So I started my study with understanding typography. So every typography has like a visual rhetoric. So every typography is visually rhetorical. That means it has a semantic aspect to it. If I want to show an emotion of like furiousness or excitedness, I might choose a certain kind of font which represent that in particular emotion. But then again, it's like an artistic exploration. It's like an artistic choice what I want to choose. We were not the one to be able to choose it. It happens like what if it is natural? So that is what I started to explore. Then I started understanding sound of like if I want to incorporate it sound and I mean superimpose sound in typography, I need to like find something in terms of data which can be used to manipulate my typography. So I stumble upon the idea of like frequency, because frequency is can have like a proper values, like a proper assumption values. If I were to say if I play a bass sound, we know that it's a lower frequency sound, and we can have like a proper value for it as well, let's say 30 hertz or let's say 200 hertz. So that was the particular idea I went forward with. Now to associate or work it out with the typography, I kind of figure out my own method to actually experiment it. I started experimenting with the concept. So one way was to actually manipulate the surface of the typography. Let's say if it's a 3D typeface, I can maybe manipulate the surface of the typography if I play sound to it. Or if I can maybe like just like the atoms, I can make the typeface out of it, and each atom would react to the sound. So how it would look like. So there was two ways to go with it. I'll show you the second idea first. So I took an inspiration from Ren Zhang. She's having a master's. She did a master's from Mica, and she was working in that particular idea where she associated different shapes with the different frequencies of the sound. So that was the idea I took further, and also with an exploration with an artistic expression, I chose that maybe sphere can have the lower frequency associated with it. I can associate sphere with the lower frequency and maybe tetrahedron with the higher frequency, because when we think about it, higher frequency might be like having high pitch, or it's like it can we perceive it as like a sharper shapes. So that's what I did. So I created a grid of 15 by 15 where I would associate each shape to those to the particular part highlighted of each font. And with each shapes, I can have 5 different layers to it. So every layer would have different shape, right? So there are 5 different. So there's an A, and there are 5 different layers behind it, and each layer has different shapes associated with it, which are triggered by the particular base value. So if I were to play a high frequency note, which would be like, let's say around 2500 hertz, So according to this, it would only trigger the tetrahedron shape, not the sphere. So that was the generalized theoretical idea behind it. And that particular one system gave me a way, one particular method or one particular interface gave me a way to just play the sound and it would react automatically, or like I neither have to do with it, just because I associated the shapes with it. So these were the two different sounds I played. So this the one with the sound, I played a male voice, which is like have a base value associated with it. So the spheres got affected. And in this particular part with the go, I played like a guitar sound, which was like having the higher frequency sound, and it's now sharp in edges. So that was, those were the exploration I tried. You can also go on, maybe scan or take a screenshot right now and maybe look for the different explorations as well. So the second method I worked out was like literally manipulating the surface of the typography. Let's take the surface as like a cloth, and now if I play the sound, the cloth would react to it. The same idea worked upon it. So I basically took a sound as a value, like as a frequency. I converted it to the real numbers and basically associated it with the surface of the 3D. I will show it to you, the exploration, what I got out of it, because this is the second exploration that I did. But the idea behind these kind of things were like, it was kind of manual in a way. I had to do some, or I have to do something, some sort of action to to get an output. What if because I wanted it to be a live thing, I wanted to be working in the real time. So I wanted to explore in that particular term. So that gave a way to my third exploration, where I actually worked out with a system, where I actually worked out in a with a visual programming tool, and I actually basically associated frequency to manipulate the surface. I have an example here, I'll show it to you. So this is this is basically the system that came out with it. And if I were to show you what it is actually doing, it is taking the live input of my audio and basically converting into the frequency, and then basically manipulating the surface. So as if I'm speaking right now, it's actually working out. So as if I'm speaking right now, it is basically acting out on its own. So it's real time. So you can have like various implementations as well. So again, as a designer, typography is experimental to us, it's fun to us. So I, what if it could be fun for everyone out there? So it could be turned out in a, let's say, interactive exhibition kind of a space where people can actually play with the typography as well. Also, if I take it in a far-fetched scenario, maybe people with hearing impairment could take advantage from it. Just because I had a like a learning limitation, I couldn't explore a lot with this particular tool of visual programming. But there, with the proper understanding, I can certainly explore, we all can certainly explore much greater depth of introducing sound with the typography. So yeah, with the second concept, I want to move further with the second concept. So with this particular idea, I associated different shapes of the sound, which I mean different shapes of the typography which came with respect to my sound, and I associated it with the emotions. So I actually had like, let's say, a typeface, a base typeface, which was Montserrat, and I actually played sounds, different kind of sounds to it, and then I associated those shapes that came out to certain emotions. Now I have a typeface which is emotive, which certainly can convey emotion as well. Also, it is made out of my own voice as well. So if I were to scream at it, if I'm representing anger, if I were to scream at it, because it's a higher frequency sound, it would certainly come out in this particular zone of like having the shape which would be very much which would have thorns. And if I were to not scream at it, if I were to like just laugh or something, it would have certainly these kind of things. So these came out of the system and I had nothing to do with it. It was just the exploration that I was trying out. So that particularly led to the typeface, which is emotive in a way as well, and it's playful, and it's playful also. So yeah, that's my output as while I was exploring the audio and visual typographical aspect together. So yeah, that is my presentation. Thank you.
Thank you, Sushrut, for that
Yeah.
very, very nice exploration. After all, at your age, if you're not going to explore, then, what can we say? So, I mean, all of the presentations here, the Bharatanatyam presentation, your presentation, even the scrapbook presentation, the interlocking Devanagari script, they all have an element of exploration in it. And of course, the closest that I can think of here is the film August Rush, where the character, if you watch the film, you'll find this character, beautiful English young actor who could feel sounds, sense sound. For him, the only thing he could do was hear, and his piano, etc. Because he was also an inbred musician that he didn't know about, and he was like an orphan child, lost child. He was lost in crowd, and then the mother discovered him through a concert, rediscovered him. Do watch the film. So perhaps he was, the character in August Rush, perhaps had synesthesia, and right. And increasingly, with our awareness for special needs, we are actually moving on to platforms, making these legitimate everyday use platforms. And so you probably have a great deal of role to play for the future. And interactive installation is the way to go, especially for the audio impaired, also for special needs children like those suffering from cerebral palsy, etc. So yes, there's a great deal to go ahead with. Sushrut, please wait until the end of the session. There are lots of comments for all the speakers so far, the young speakers, and we would like to share this with you, as also give people an opportunity to ask you questions. So thank you, Sushrut, once again.